are these people?
President Joe Biden over the weekend gave the commencement address at Howard University. So this is kind of a local story for me since I live in DC. Which again, as I said, is a little interesting considering that Vice President Kamala Harris is an alumni. You figure she would have done the gig, but
Paul Mooney down
instead,
here. Nice.
right? We'll bring up Paul Mooney toward the end. But yeah, funny how the vice president didn't get this speaking gig over the one who never went to Howard and is also in cognitive decline. But I digress. So anyway, he gave his speech was about just shy of 30 minutes. And it was very depressing. I'll say it right now. Chadwick Boseman did it better.
Okay.
But unfortunately, there are a couple of things that I will pull from his commencement address. Obviously, the big thing that was spoken about over the weekend was Biden talking about white supremacy in this country. So we will highlight that a little bit just so you guys can see what he actually said. And then there are a couple other clips that I pulled that I think are also interesting in regards to, our current state of affairs in this country and how it pertains to these graduates who are about to go out into the world and realize the fuckery that this president in part has brought them into. So let's get into it. So this clip is probably, as I said, the one that got the most attention, where he starts talking. Well, he kind of relates to, his term as vice president and coming off of Trump. Yeah, but actually before that, I totally forgot that I sent a tweet. I said on Saturday, I remember a certain president who proposed canceling student loan debt for students who attended HBCUs. Today, this president is speaking at Howard University's commencement as student loan payments are about to restart. I hope the students protest. So that's what I said on Saturday. And it didn't look like there was any. There were a handful.
Like one,
I think according to reports, there was like a dozen students there who did like a quiet protest.
Yeah.
But obviously not enough to make any news or gain any attention. But we will talk about one king in particular who did something. But anyway, let's get into this address. Well, the first part I want to show, where Biden talks about white supremacy.
While waiting for Barack, I was both living history at the same time I was reliving it. A vivid demonstration when it comes to race in America. Hope doesn't travel alone. It's shadowed by fear, by violence, and by hate.
Oh, sorry.
What? You're okay.
That was me. Sorry.
While waiting for Barack, I was both living history at the same time I was reliving it. A vivid demonstration when it comes to race in America. Hope doesn't travel alone. It's shadowed by fear, by violence, and by hate. But after the election and the re-election of the first black American president, I had hope.
President,
fear,
my boss.
Violence, and hate was significantly losing ground. After no longer being vice president, I became a professor at the University of Pennsylvania for 4 years. But in 2017, in Charlottesville, Virginia, crazed neo-Nazis with angry faces.
The dude next to him looks like he's asleep.
Came out of the fields literally with torches, carrying Nazi banners from the woods and the fields, chanting the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s, something I never thought I would ever see in America. Accompanied by Klansmen and white supremacists,
What about
emerging
Ukraine?
from dark rooms and remote fields, and the anonymity of the internet.
Like in
Confronting
like, yes,
decent Americans of all backgrounds,
in Europe.
standing in their way into the bright light of day. And a
was
young
at
woman,
night.
objecting to their presence, was killed. And what did you hear? That famous
And you
quote,
ain't black.
when asked about what happened. That famous quote, there are very fine people on both sides. That's when I knew, and I'm not joking, that's when I knew I had to stay engaged and get back into public life. No,
Pause right here.
I don't.
So notice how he was like, oh, because of white supremacy,
Mm-hmm.
it forced me to come back into public office. Not, oh, like,
Not the crime bill
healthcare.
or the right.
None of the stuff that he has actually had a hand in making this country worse, especially for some of these, I would say for all intents and purposes, all these families in this room and these students who are about to graduate into the world. He didn't come back for that. But no, he decided to come back because of, I won't say the word because I don't want to potentially get us in trouble, but but the ends,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, what happened several years ago under Trump. So yeah, funny how he came back for that and nothing for anything economic, but we'll continue.
I don't say it for that reason. I say it for the journey. I don't have to tell you that fearless progress toward justice often meets ferocious pushback from the oldest and most sinister of forces. That's because hate never goes away. I thought when I graduated.
He's just telling on himself there.
Right.
Hate never goes away. Okay.
We could defeat hate, but it never goes away. It only hides under the rocks. And when it's given oxygen, it comes out from under that rock. That's why we know this truth as well. Silence is complicity. It cannot remain silent. We have to live through this battle for the soul of the nation. And it is still a battle for the soul of the nation. What is the soul of a nation? Well, I believe the soul is the breath, the life, the essence of who we are. The soul makes us us. The soul of America is what makes us unique among all nations. We're the only country founded on an idea, not geography, not
except highly influenced by geography and less ideas, but yes, continue.
Religion, not ethnicity, but an idea. The sacred proposition rooted in Scripture and enshrined in the Declaration of Independence that we're all.
He just said that it wasn't founded on religion and then goes to, and it's documented in Scripture.
Right.
What?
Created equal.
Except when it was founded, we weren't all created equal.
Well,
so,
if you were a white Anglo-Saxon male
who owned land,
then you're good.
You were
and
good.
Everyone else
can
kick rocks.
Especially
if black people, you weren't even considered human. But continue.
In the image of God and deserve to be treated equally throughout our lives. While we've never fully lived up to that promise, we never before fully walked away from it.
Yes, you have.
We know that American history has not always been a fairy tale.
And you ain't black.
From the start, it's been a constant push and pull for more than 240 years between the best of us, the American ideal that we're all created equal, and the worst of us.
Oh shit, he remembers he read a book.
That racism has long torn us apart. It's a battle that's never really over. But on the best days, enough of us have the guts and the hearts to stand up for the best in us, to choose love over hate, unity over disunion, progress over retreat, to stand up against the poison white supremacy, as I did my inaugural address, to single out as the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
The most dangerous thing in this country, I'm just paraphrasing, is white supremacy.
Yeah, that's what he said.
There's a tweet that I pulled that kind of counters that, but this is kind of what everyone was talking about over the weekend regarding this commencement address. It's like, oh yes, go Biden. Like, he actually called out white supremacy. Like, but you notice that this is what he's going with. This is similar to his State of the Union address. This is similar to many speeches that he's given before. I remember, like, when he won the election, how he mentioned that he was going to be the president that would unite everybody, right? Like, he was going to be the president. Like, he called out the idea, like, we are so fractured in terms of thought and just whatever, that he was going to unify people. And here he is several years later at a HBCU talking about how the others are the ones that are affecting your life, whereas he's been the one, in part, that's helped perpetuate that state of white supremacy. And I talked about this last year because you might remember this, Reef, when I went to my awards function with Empower Ed, the advocacy group that I'm a part of, that Jamal Bowman, who spoke, kind of said something very similar to this.
Yeah.
Unity.
And I had to point out back then that a lot of the white supremacy that is caused in this country is not due to, the Republicans, as many of our politicians now, especially on the Democrat side, would like to say. Like, a lot of this appearance to white supremacy is actually among the elite, and especially ones who are educated. I made that point last year in terms of the eugenics movement in the country that was pushed by, the elites, the progressives at the time, especially at the Ivy League schools. So the idea that he's trying to kind of phrase, like, he's kind of talking about both sides of his mouth, and the idea of, like, we need to get together, we need to be unified, but at the same time, it's like, we need to tackle the people who allegedly are causing or perpetuating white supremacy in this country. Nothing in regards to economics, nothing in regards to, how to elevate the African American condition in terms of doing things practically that will help uplift all Black people and not just these guys who are probably going to go on and promote Black capitalism, in their lives. Not all, but I would say many of them will. And nothing in regards to, it's just very ominous and very dark. Like, I thought, like, commencement speeches are meant to be hopeful, and whatnot. And Biden can actually provide that in terms of offering, like, legislation or, again, kind of things that he has done that going out to the world will make their lives a little bit easier. But he doesn't mention that at all in terms of anything that he said. Is just a lot of fear mongering and just, it's very sad that, that the students there did not call him out on that right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's, as I said, that was what most people were talking about, that at least I saw on Twitter. There are a couple other clips I do want to highlight that weren't necessarily mentioned. So we can go to this next part, which kind of follows what he just stated just now. This is more kind of the crux of his speech in terms of really what... You'll just listen to it. Go ahead.
I'm saying this because I'm at a Black HBCU. I say it wherever I go. To stand up for truth over lies, lies told for power and profit. To confront the
What about your
ongoing
lies?
assault to subvert our elections, suppress our right to vote. That assault came just as you cast your first ballots in 20 and 22. Record turnouts. You delivered historic progress. I made it clear that Americans of all backgrounds, have an obligation to call out political violence that has been unleashed and emboldened. As was mentioned already, bomb threats to this very university and HBCUs across the country. To put democracy on the ballot, to reject political extremism and reject political violence, protect fundamental rights and freedom for women to choose, for transgender children to be free, for affordable health care and housing, for the right to raise your family and retire with dignity.
What about student
Stand with
loans?
leaders of your generation who give voice
Oh,
to the
he'll
people
get to that.
demanding action on gun violence, only to be expelled from state legislative bodies. To stand against books being banned and Black history being erased. I'm serious, think about it.
I'm
To
not gonna.
stand
No,
up for the best in us.
I hate that.
And today I come here to Howard to continue the work to redeem the soul of this nation, because it's here where I see the future, and that's not hyperbole. We can finally resolve those ongoing questions about who we are as a nation. That puts strength of our diversity at the center of American life. The future that celebrates and learns from history. A future for all Americans. A future I see you leading, and I'm not, again, exaggerating. You are going to be leading it. Again, let's be clear. There are those who don't see you and don't want this future. There are those who demonize and pit people against one another. And there are those who do anything and everything, no matter how desperate or immoral, to hold on to power.
And I know those people very well when I look in the mirror. You
Right.
know?
Right. And you notice how he talked about every cultural issue available. And he
Yep.
just kind of glossed over like, oh, you helped us fight for affordable housing. No, you didn't. Affordable healthcare. For like seniors in terms of insulin. And yeah, this is, yeah, I just hated this. I really just hated this whole thing because again, like, and not to sound like stereotypical, but you know, again, like, commencement speeches are meant to be hopeful in terms of, you know, you're going out of the world and yeah, there might be shit going on, but like you have the education, you have something that you're looking forward to, you have something that you're able to kind of go in the world and try and make a change. You know, just kind of like the usual pomp and circumstance in terms of these graduation things, you know, and like Biden is just kind of going off this doom and gloom in terms of, yeah, this white supremacy. And yeah, you helped vote us in and we're trying to do all these issues for you. But he didn't mention like the last 2 years when he actually had a majority in both houses that he basically got nothing done. And especially he didn't get anything done in terms of trying to improve the lives in the room that he claims that he is trying to work on their behalf. Any other thought before I go to this last clip?
No.
Because I think this is probably the worst one, honestly.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Give me a little break
right.
here.
So let's go to the last one. So this is kind of like, to me, this is probably the most telling. So focus on the crowd, like for what you hear. So this is what I want you guys to focus on in watching this part of the speech. So go ahead.
Every class enters The history of a nation up to the point has been written by others. But few classes, once in every several generations, enters at a point in our history where it actually has a chance to change the trajectory of the country. You face that inflection point today, and I know you'll meet the moment. I just think about the many ways you already have. With your voices and votes, I was able to fulfill my commitment to put the first black woman on the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And by the way,
How did that help?
she's brighter than the rest. She is one bright woman. Because of you, more black women have been appointed to the federal appellate courts than under every other president in American history combined.
Okay, how's that gonna help?
And by the way, I mean it. I mean it because of you. Because of you. You turned out. You spoke up. You knew. You showed up and the votes counted. And you made people say, whoa, wait a minute. What price will I pay if I don't do the following? You feel the promise and peril of climate change. Because of you, we're making the biggest investment ever in the history of the world in climate change.
While opening up the Arctic to drilling.
Right.
I'm keeping my promise that no one should be in jail merely because of using and possessing marijuana. Their record should be expunged.
Except that didn't happen. You didn't release anyone from anything. Like, we talked about that too, did we not?
Yes.
About how that was completely bullshit.
Right. And then there were other mayors who tried to
Do similar stuff that essentially no one was being, anyway.
My student debt relief plan would help tens of millions of people. Especially those on Pell Grants.
So pause here.
70%.
So like, you notice how they were cheering over that.
Yes, they don't know what it is.
They don't know what it is. Y'all need to listen to me because I've been screaming from the rafters for the last few months. He's not going to cancel your damn debt.
No.
Watch it next month when the Supreme Court strikes it down, and then watch them say, oh, like it's the Supreme Court's fault or it's a federal judge's fault.
Yep.
Watch.
Black college students receive Pell Grants. Many of you, the savings would be significant in even wiping out student debt completely for some. But
For some.
And I'm sure not for them. Definitely not for
at
them.
Howard.
20,000 is not going to go anywhere at Howard. I forgot what the average tuition is, but it's more than 20,000 a year. Given the infrastructure, because I live nearby, to me, it's not worth 20,000. But regardless, like 20,000 ain't gonna do shit.
Nope.
For any of them in that room.
this new Republican Party is dead set against it, suing my administration to stop you from getting student debt relief. The same opposition who received relief loans, I might add, to keep their businesses afloat during the pandemic. Members of the Congress
and who let them do that?
Millions of dollars, most of which didn't have to be paid back. Yet they say it's okay for them, but not for you. I find it outrageous. To reduce your student debt service payments when you graduate, we're also ensuring that no one with an undergraduate loan today or in the future will have to pay more than 5% of discretionary income to repay their loans, down from 10, and in 20 years is gone.
Right, so we'll make sure they don't take as much as your money out of your, like, only 5% of your income is going to be taken. Okay.
With jobs that, depending on what they do,
with massively high interest rates on top of that, which then would just make you pay more.
Right.
Like,
Right. That's the part that they're not
Republican
saying.
officials are fighting
Yeah.
that as well. But I'll always keep fighting for you, and many others will, and many in the Republican Party as well will.
You couldn't
for
fight your way out of a paper bag
So
there,
we also
hombre.
know there's more to do. Because of your power, we took the most significant law on gun violence. We passed it, most significant law in 30 years. But we will not give up. I got the assault weapons ban passed 30 years ago, and we're going to pass it again. We must pass it. There's more to do on police reform. and
You
public
got
safety.
it. You got it passed, but then what happened?
During the State of the Union, I asked the rest of the country to imagine having to talk to their children, their families, like your families had to talk to you. It's about your security. It's about your dignity. It's demeaning and degrading and deadly when you have to stand there and say, when you're stopped, turn the interior light on. Put both hands on the wheel. Don't reach for your license. What in the hell's going on in there?
You wrote the crime bill. That was you. Like stop and frisk and whatnot. That was you. Like,
Think about it. I ask all the parents, non-minority children, ask what they would say, what they would do. I know you're frustrated that there's so many elected officials who refuse to pass a law that will do something. Kamala and I stood next to the family of George Floyd and the civil rights leaders and law enforcement officials to sign the executive order I came up with requiring the key elements of the George Floyd bill be applied to federal law enforcement. Banning chokeholds, restricting no-knock warrants, establishing a database for police misconduct, advancing effective and accountable community policing that builds public trust. And we'll keep fighting to pass the reforms nationwide. Equal justice is a covenant we have with each other.
ain't no talks of defunding anything though, did he?
No. So, yeah, to summarize, this speech was bullshit. He tried
Yep.
to find every cultural thing or any issue that he believed that whoever wrote this did a shitty job, honestly. But tried to pick every cultural issue that he believed that they would connect with in order to get the applause, trying to, get them, so hyped up in terms, especially with student debt, knowing that it's not going to get passed, but essentially being like, just kind of putting the fear and trepidation in their hearts in terms of, if you kind of saying without saying, if you don't vote for us, the Republicans are going to do more shit. So you have to vote for us.
Yeah.
To kind of counter that in the hope that we'll actually do something. Right. So anyway, as I said, there were several, as I said, unfortunately, and I was waiting to see if there was going to be a massive protest at Howard. There wasn't. But there were a few people that, did their thing, that actually were brave enough to actually stand against Biden. So this tweet is from Benny Johnson. There were several people that tweeted this out, but he was one of them that I pulled. Savage HBCU student had savage message for Joe Biden as he delivered commencement address at Howard University graduation ceremony. Biden and Harris don't care about Black people. So he had that written on top of his graduation cap. Word up to you, King.
Good
So
for you, bro.
next slide. This is from Ron Milner, and he writes, remember when Joe Biden said he would unite America? White supremacy is the single most dangerous terrorist threat in our homeland. Joe Biden at Howard University filling the minds of young people with hate and fear. As I said, he claimed that he was going to try and unite us after Trump, and here he is trying to call out the others in terms of white supremacy. So we got
And he
another,
looks like the white supremacist mascot in this photo.
yeah, all he needs is a hood, and some of you said in the chat
Literally,
said the
like
same
it's
thing,
close
all he
enough.
needs is a hood,
Right.
you know?
Like he looks like a grand wizard right now.
So if you look at our next slide,
Oh, I know this
we
guy.
talked about this young cat, and I wish we didn't have to, but you know, he's making the rounds on TikTok or whatever, making his money, so he can buy his arrow or whatnot. But here he goes saying, President Biden was right to say that white supremacy is the biggest domestic threat. The far right and their conspiracies are the most dangerous than anything affecting America right now. Thank you for telling the truth, Mr. President. And so the next slide, we have Frank Lombardi, who calls him out
Yep.
in response. And I thought this was the perfect tweet where he says, propaganda is currently the biggest threat at home. And whether or not you're smart enough to realize it yet, your account is a prime example of exactly the kind of BS propaganda that the ruling class has been shoving down the throats of the working class for 50 plus years. But you wouldn't know anything about the working class, would you? Nah, didn't think so. In all seriousness, I hope you sleep soundly at night after all that Adderall wears off, knowing that you sold your soul to a system and to a party that couldn't give two shits about your generation, two shits about the people, nor two shits about the so-called threat of white supremacy, beyond how many votes it can scare up among the hopelessly stupid, the perpetually uninformed, and the easily frightened.
Bravo, sir.
Facts.
Bravo.
Facts. So I had enough, but so don't play it yet. Actually, no. Go ahead. So I pulled this one because Reef, I know you love this guy.
No, you probably use it, God.
He's based or whatever.
Yeah.
And someone reminded me of, funny enough, someone reminded me of this quote a few days before the commencement address, which I thought was very appropriate to play here. So this goes out to all the Howard administration and some of y'all students who were actually happy that Biden allowed Biden to spoke at your Howard halls.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Mr. Mooney. Say your piece.
White folks love you when you're scared. There's only two kind of black people in America today. You either running free or you running scared. How you running? And I'm not dumb. Race has nothing to do with color. I ain't stupid. Because there's a bunch of you black Anglo-Saxons. That skin is black, but that brain is white. And when I get mad at you, guess what I call you? You graham cracker motherfucker.
I mean,
yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You know, so shame on the Howard administration who basically were capping for Biden. Shame, and I can't even blame the students that hard. Actually, yes, I can. Shame on the Howard students that really should know better, that to not make a stand.
Shame.
Yeah, who didn't make a stand at your graduation and make noise in regards to the very president who is going to lead you into a life of hell. And you do not realize, either you don't realize it, or you're too scared to say something in regards to it, or you're too ignorant, which speaks to the education that unfortunately you didn't receive. Because we don't teach you how to think critically for yourselves. We're teaching you to basically to be puppets to the system and to placate to people like Joe Biden. So, I mean, that's all I got. So that's my rant. So anything else you want to say before we move on?
Nope. I think you did it.
Yeah. So like I said, you know, I feel bad for the students, but at the same time, I don't feel so bad I feel bad in how those people in that room were part of the radical revolution in the 60s. Pretty much all of them, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And they just sat there watching Joe Biden spout that shit in fear to placate to them and the Democrats in the mindset of, oh, we will do something for you. It's just the Republicans or whatever.
Right.
And so
Yep.
I'm good.
Speaking of, let's do that and then redo that. There we go.